What is going on, everybody? In today's video, we are going to be breaking down 5 must-draft tight ends for the 2024 fantasy football season. So for the most part, we're going to be kind of looking outside the top elite tier of tight ends and kind of try to find some value tight ends that you can target, add to your roster, and still come out of your draft with a league-winning tight end who I think can finish anywhere from the tight end 3, maybe even up to the tight end 1, depending on how things shake out. So there's still some elite names on this list, don't get me wrong, but we're going to look at ADP overall and why maybe you should wait as long as possible to draft a tight end in your upcoming draft if you can land one of these 5 following tight ends. So if you guys are new to the channel, this is all we do here all year long. Free fantasy football content, redraft, dynasty, and best ball. If you guys are into that, be sure to hit that subscribe button and join the community down below. If you guys have any fantasy football questions, drop them down below as well. I'll get back to you as soon as I possibly can. Let's not waste any more time. Let's hop right into today's video. All right, like I said, there's still going to be some elite tier kind of tight ends on today's list. I think some would argue as number 1 overall, we're going to talk about Dalton Kincade. But right now, when you look on Underdog, you got Sam Laporta, Travis Kelce, Trey McBride, Mark Andrews, Kincade as the tight end 5 off of the board, and then you go over to the sleeper app. Laporta, Kelce, McBride, Andrews, then Kincade. And I think Kincade, where you're getting him an ADP of 49.7 on Sleeper, an ADP of 51.5 on Underdog, has the capacity to finish as high as a tight end 1 this year. So I think if you're looking for a potential top tier tight end at a bit of a discount, that guy is Dalton Kincade. When we break down this roster for the Buffalo Bills going into this following year, this is your true number 1 option in terms of a receiver on this roster. I mean, I think there's still, the potential upside in rookie Keon Coleman. I think Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakir will have their roles in this offense. I think James Cook is going to catch passes. But at the end of the day, the guy for Josh Allen to target is going to be Dalton Kincade. And I know some people are like kind of mention Dawson Knox and get worried about Dawson Knox and what his usage could be. And I will admit, Knox and Allen will probably always have some sort of chemistry in the red zone, but Knox struggled to stay healthy last year, just played in 12 games. And in those 12 games, had just 22 receptions for 186 receiving yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. So I think there's like the potential that, Knox could spoil some games, maybe like 2 or 3 times this year. But overall, I'm not worried about it. When you look at, when the Bills made their change at offensive coordinator halfway through this season, you saw Kincade just get heavily involved right away. I mean, he had 6 or more targets in every game since week 7, other than week 15 and week 16. So just 2 games. And in a majority of those games, he had 7 or more targets. So he's just a player who's in position to be the number 1 read for Josh Allen. And just, whenever we look at a young tight end, like not everyone can have a Sam Laporta type of rookie season. And it takes time for these tight ends to really develop in their respective offenses. So I think everything is there for Kincade to just have a massive kind of breakout sophomore season. Allen's going to need him to have it. Because like I said, I think this receivers, we could have something here, but the best option for Josh Allen in terms of this passing game is going to be Dalton Kincade. And once again, if you want to break it down further, that stretch after the change of offensive coordinator between week 7 and week 18, you saw single-digit fantasy performances just 3 times. So I think we're going to see plenty of double-digit fantasy performances for Dalton Kincade in full PPR. Like I said, I mean, plenty of people still kind of consider him an elite tight end going into the season, but you kind of get him at a discount in comparison to Laporta, Kelce, McBride, and Andrews. He's kind of at the bottom of that tier, and I think he's absolutely going to pay off at his current ADP. All right, next up, let's talk about Evan Ingram, who's got an ADP of 75.8 on Underdog, an ADP of 67.7 on the Sleeper app. And this is another player, I mean, he's still going just after Kincade, Pitts, Kittle, and Ingram. But realistically, this is your tight end 2 from last year in PPR, the tight end 5 from 2022 in PPR. Like, how often is it that we have a player finish in the top 5 2 years in a row at any position, and we just throw him like all the way down the rankings? I don't understand this, you know? We got Trevor Lawrence, who had 3 different injuries last year, coming back, should be fully healthy, and even in the games where Lawrence didn't play last year, Ingram was fine. Like, this Jacksonville Jaguars offense will be fine. They still got Christian Kirk, went out and got Brian Thomas Jr. in the draft. They added Gabe Davis, Travis Etienne, definitely a capable RB1, and Evan Ingram is at the vocal point of this entire offense. Double-digit fantasy points per game on average last year. Like, I don't really know why I have to make this argument. Nearly 1,000 receiving yards last year, 143 targets. That is a lot of targets. George Kittle had 90 targets last year. Mark Andrews, although he was hurt, had 61. Kincade had 91. McBride had 106. Laporta had 120. And Kelsey had 121. Just to put that in perspective, Evan Ingram had 143 targets last year. I mean, the way he's getting drafted right now blows my mind. He's a player like in underdog drafts, he makes me want to go bully tight end and draft 2 early tight ends because when he's on the board, even if I already have gone elite tight end and a guy like Sam Laporta or Trey McBride, whoever it is, sometimes Kincade or Pitts, and Ingram's still there, I'm like, it's just such a good value. I can't pass it up. So he's a guy, if he stays at this ADP, like I am not drafting tight end early in redraft formats. I'm just targeting Evan Ingram, and I'm not even afraid to take him a spot or two against ADP because if he's my tight end 1, I am feeling golden going into 2024. All right, next up, we've got Jake Ferguson, who has an ADP of 84.7 on Underdog. So he's being drafted right after Evan Ingram on Underdog, but on the Sleeper app, he gets drafted a little bit later at an ADP of 87.8. You got Ingram, Bowers, and Njoku, and then Ferguson. And Ferguson's another player that I truly feel like if he's my tight end 1 going into 2024, and I can wait till round 7, 8, or 9 to draft him, then I feel ecstatic because I think he could truly have a top 5 finish this upcoming season. He was a tight end 9 last year, and Dak Prescott and this Cowboys offense is going to need Jake Ferguson this year. When we look at what they're going to do in the red zone, of course, CeeDee Lamb's always going to be the number 1 option. Brandon Cooks had enough splash weeks last year that I think Cooks will still be relevant. Now we're getting nice coach speak out of Mike McCarthy about Jalen Tolbert. Don't get me wrong, but Ferguson is going to be that security blanket outside of CeeDee Lamb for Dak Prescott throughout the whole year, and he's going to have really good red zone value because right now we've got Dusty Crusty, Ezekiel Elliott as RB1, and then Rico Dowdle at RB2. Like, I think those guys will be fine, but are they going to go over the top in the red zone in terms of efficiency? No. Jake Ferguson, who had 5 receiving touchdowns last year, I think could easily hit double-digit receiving touchdowns this coming year. Absolutely love him at his ADP, and this Cowboys offense is going to be a pass-first offense like we saw last year. The offensive line's not great. They're not going to have an option but to pass first. The targets are going to be there. Had 102 targets, 71 receptions last year. He's in a great spot overall. Beautiful ADP. Jake Ferguson, I think, is a must-target, must-draft tight end going into 2024. Do not forget that I am still running several streams throughout the week where I am hopping into real 2024 fantasy football drafts on Underdog Fantasy. If you guys don't want to wait any longer to draft 2024 fantasy football teams, you don't have to. Underdog has all kinds of different unique contests that you guys can enter, including their flagship Best Ball Mania, where somebody is going to win up to $1.5 million. This is the best way to prepare for the upcoming fantasy football season. These are the sharpest drafts throughout the offseason. Plus, Underdog already has week 1 NFL pick'ems out where you guys can play in their new streaks format and win up to 1,000x your money. Promo code the catch. The link is down below as well. Get you a first time 50% deposit match up to $250 plus a mystery pick'em that you guys can use towards that streaks up to 1,000x your money. Promo code the catch. Don't forget, when you sign up, we'll get you that first time 50% deposit match on Underdog fantasy. All right, next up, let's talk about Cole Kmet of the Chicago Bears going at an ADP of 142.3 on Underdog and an ADP of 123 on the Sleeper app. I'm a fan of Cole Kmet, okay? I think where he's going in drafts, if you completely punt the tight end position, if you miss out on all the elite tier guys, some of the guys we just talked about or mentioned, they get sniped from you, whatever, you just have to punt the position. I love Cole Kmet. I know that Keenan Allen's in this offense now. I know that DeAndre Swift's in this offense. He can catch passes. And I know that the Bears drafted Rome Odunze as well. But overall, I think a rookie quarterback will rely on a player like Cole Kmet pretty often throughout this upcoming season. I know that, Caleb Williams, I've heard, didn't necessarily target the tight end position a ton in college, but this is the NFL. He's going to need to do so. And it just kind of surprises me that Kmet once again is kind of being slept on going into this year because he was a tight end 7 in 2022 and kind of had a similar ADP going into last year. And then he finished as a tight end 8. Here we are once again just sleeping on a tight end that had over 700 receiving yards, 73 receptions off of 90 targets, and 6 receiving touchdowns. Now, I will say Justin Fields and Cole Kmet seem to have a really good chemistry, but I don't think that, where you're drafting him at, if there's regression here, if he finishes as a tight end 10, 11, or 12, that he's a bad selection if you have punted the tight end spot in your draft. And you can always pair him with another late round tight end, whether it's a TJ Hawkinson, he might be back after week 6, a Dalton Schultz, Pat Fryermuth, whoever you kind of like in that range. I think Cole Kmet is going to be part of this Bears offense that should improve this year, should be more efficient, should be in the red zone more. And at the end of the day, I think he's going to finish as a nice security blanket option for rookie quarterback Caleb Williams. Average double digits fantasy points last year. I think he can easily do the same this year. If he regresses, I'm not too worried about it. I don't think it'll be that bad. And this is a name that usually this time of year we're talking about. At least we have been for the last 2 seasons. And this year, there's crickets on Cole Kmet. I think he's a guy who's falling in drafts, who comes out as a really good value heading into 2024. All right, last but not least, let's talk about Luke Musgrave, an ADP of 132.5 on Sleeper, an ADP of 146.6 on Underdog. And if you guys have been following the channel this offseason, you may think that I had forgotten about Luke Musgrave because I started the offseason talking about Luke Musgrave a lot as a player that I really liked at his ADP. And guess what? I still love Luke Musgrave at his current ADP. For the same exact reason. I still think this Packers offense going to throw the football a lot. I know that Josh Jacobs is there now, but you got Reed, Watson, Dobbs, and Tavion Wicks. We've heard some rumblings about Bo Melton. And what's getting lost in all that is that I think Luke Musgrave is going to be a big part of this passing attack going into this 2024 season as well. He had 352 receiving yards last year, but 344 total air yards. Like, he was getting involved in big plays. Like, he was getting down the field throws. If you go back and watch some of the Packers games last year, it's a big time reception. So obviously, the total finishes from last year aren't anything that make you feel great. And he did miss some time. He only played in 11 games, got hurt in week 11. But overall, for what he did, he ended up with 10.35 yards per catch off of those 352 receiving yards, off of 34 receptions, which is pretty dang good. So I think he's definitely in line, as long as he stays healthy, to have a sophomore kind of breakout season. And I've heard people kind of mention Tucker Kraft is still involved in this offense. And really, if you break it down, what happened last year when we saw Tucker Kraft become relevant was week 11 forward, especially week 12 forward, after Musgrave was already hurt. So I think Kraft is talented as well. Also going into the sophomore season, if you want to take some shots on Kraft like an underdog, if you're drafted Jordan Love or something, I think that logic makes sense. But overall, I think Musgrave was the flashier player, the player with more upside, who I think fits this offense better. And for that reason, I like Luke Musgrave going into 2024. If you've punted the position, I think he's just a great value. Still pair him with a Cole Kmet, Schultz, Hawkinson, Fryermuth, Otten, Ben Sinnott, whoever you like, kind of in that late range. Maybe even end up with a Dallas Goedert, whatever it may be. I just really like Luke Musgrave at his current ADP, and I think he could easily have a breakout season going into 2024. And I think he ends up being a must-draft tight end for the upcoming season. And that'll do it for today's video. If you guys did enjoy the content today, be sure to hit that subscribe button on the way out. This is all we do here all year long, free fantasy football content, redraft, dynasty, and best ball. If you guys are into that, come join the community. Side of that, if you guys have any fantasy football questions, drop them down below. I'll get back to you as soon as I possibly can. Let me know while you're down there, what tight ends are you targeting going into 2024? What tight ends do you think could end up being league winners going into the coming fantasy season? With that, I'll say thank you guys so much for watching and or listening. And remember, you saw it here on the catch.